Welcome, another episode. Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, here with Jordan Hagedorn. As you can see from the show notes, we're going to talk about Jordan's origin story. But before we get into that, thanks to the sponsors, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, comc.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, fooled you, Mike Stadium Sports Cards. I did not forget you, Mike. Tops, Panini, and Upper Deck. I like to mix it up a little bit. Jordan, welcome here to Dallas. It's always fun to do in-person interviews. I'm delighted to have you here and looking forward to hearing some of your origin story from being a collector, but now, are you an agent / collector or collector / agent?
I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but okay. I like to do it all.
Well, cool. Well, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I speak for my 12-year-old self and my current self.
Good.
And all of these collectors who worshipped your magazine back in the day. Okay. Thank you for having me, and I'm honored to be on the podcast.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm looking forward to hearing. Again, listeners know that these are pretty much unedited and unscripted, and so it's. I just look forward to hearing your story.
Sure.
And the fact that there was some intersection with our magazines and books, and perhaps grading, those are positive things as well. But
100%. So I'm originally from a city called Eau Claire, Wisconsin. It's about 90 miles from Minneapolis, and being in Wisconsin, you grow up a Packer fan. So
yeah, have to, I guess.
So that's how it shook out for me, and huge Brett Favre fan. So when I was 9 years old, the Packers, Favre had just taken over about a year before that, a couple years, and came in, and I fell in love with Brett Favre and the Packers, and they just started to get real good. And I got into collecting that same year in 94. And so was collecting Favre and Marshall Faulk. And how it all got started was we would go to the grocery store, and my parents said, if you help carry the groceries in from the house, I was 9 years old, 8 years old. And if you help carry the groceries in, we'll buy you a pack of cards.
What a deal.
And so a $2 pack of 1994 Score football was the first pack. And I was chasing Marshall Faulk and Barry Sanders and Brett Favre.
Wow. Did you get your parents to go to the grocery store more frequently? Or
I asked often. I was like, do we need groceries yet? Do we need groceries?
I'm ready.
So once we needed groceries, though, I was locked in. And then I eventually started mowing lawns and getting into, any birthday money or Christmas money went to buying cards. And so would then go to the local card shop and card shows. And as you discover that, as you know, as a collector, you branch out and you see new packs and new sets and new players. And so then 95, it grew, and you see other sports too. So now you're seeing Ken Griffey Jr. and Frank Thomas, Michael Jordan, Penny Hardaway.
But you were mainly football, you would say?
It started with football just because of the Packers, and it really branched out to be baseball, basketball, football. Those were the three that I really enjoyed.
Mainly, it sounds to me, it's mainly players that you liked or that you thought were worthy of emulation. Is that what you're trying to say?
So I believe this in life in general, but with sports specifically, I don't think you pick your favorite athletes. I think they pick you. I think they sing to you. I think there's something about a certain athlete, whether it's the style or the way they play or their uniform or the way they carry themselves or some of those key moments that actually sing to you. So between Favre and Michael Jordan, Shaq, Penny Hardaway, Ken Griffey Jr. with that backwards hat. I'm a lefty, so playing baseball, I'm left-handed. You see that sweet swing, and he was just unbelievable. So, 90s was an incredible era, and so it was really an easy time to fall in love with sports.
Were you in Eau Claire, were there several card shops?
There were three card shops at one point. MVP Sports Cards, Sports Cards Plus, shout out to Richard, and then Mark's Cards, which was another one. And at that time, there was 5,000 card shops in America. It was the height,
we had almost 20,000. We got our magazines at one point.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess my number was off, but where
are they now?
True.
There's a few remnant left.
eBay stores now, right?
Yeah.
That's the game. So, but yeah, it was a great era to be a sports fan. And as a collector, every kid in school had cards, and some of my best friendships came from cards. You're collecting and trying to get that card from them. Jason Kidd was one of my favorites. And as you continue to branch out, some would buy packs or singles or whatever it may be, but I always focused on Favre. I had looking back, I still have my binder. It's a very base Favre. But yeah, from there, I continued to collect. I got out of the hobby in 2000 and then ended up moving to New York. Fast forward, moved to New York for a job in 2013. And then 2014, I went to a card show in White Plains. Okay. And I got back in. I started
East Coast National or
East Coast National. Started buying old 90s inserts, dollar cards, 50-cent cards, and they were just gorgeous cards. And I was like, this is going to come back. I feel like there's a lot of love that's missing. And there's guys like us now, you come in, you got a few bucks.
Well, the price got lower because the demand just dropped off because there were so many overproduced things. If you started in 94, you missed most of the overproduced era, but there still were some. But some of those inserts from the mid-late 90s, as you know, have just exploded crazy because they're one per case.
And I believe they are the most beautiful cards ever produced, right? There's something pure about a 52 mantle tops, of course, but these beautiful inserts, the shiny ones, the numbered ones, everything got started there. Game used, I have a game used Griffey jersey, the first one that was produced, and those are amazing cards. And so I got back into it, started collecting those, and then from there, bought 4 Michael Jordan rookies, at the time, $400 or $500. Now they're $800 to $1,200. It really exploded over the 5 years I got back into it. And as I was collecting,
Why
I
did you
said,
just buy 4?
I should have bought 400, right?
Well, whatever.
Because I bought them because I loved them and I wanted to
Yeah,
make sure my
okay.
friends could get them too. So I'll eventually probably gift those to friends. But from there, I said, I need a purpose. So as I was collecting, I said, why don't we have a purpose here to something to look forward to? So I said, I'm going to write a book. And so now I'm in the midst of writing 3 books, 1 baseball, 1 basketball, 1 football. And it will be the 1980 to 2000, the evolution of cards.
Cool. I look forward to reading that. At one point, I felt like I'd read every book that had been printed about the industry and subscribed to every magazine. And now I listen to every podcast that I am aware of. And there's a lot of people doing good work. And I'm sure yours will be, again, you're going to be able to weave in some personal stories, as well as I suppose you'll do some interviews and things like that. That sounds cool. That sounds great.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the fun part has been connecting with people, right? Like yourself, and growing up reading Beckett and looking at Beckett, and now to be sitting here with you, it's an honor and it's a privilege. It's really fun. But that is what the hobby's about, uplifting the hobby and finding ways to connect with like-minded people. And, I've seen some of your collection and we're similar. We're hoarders, right? We love these cards.
Don't tell my wife that. She's going to listen to this and say I got called out, or I don't know. I prefer to say advanced collector.
Okay, I'm with it.
But going back to those, one of the things when I'm trying to explain to someone such as my wonderful wife, it's hard to explain these shadings and minor variations and color differences that mean it's the same design, but it's a different color, and therefore it's a lot more expensive. Whereas the cards you're mentioning of the mid to late, especially the late 90s, these beautiful insert sets were separate designs. And when you were thumbing through packs, those cards popped.
Yeah, they stood out.
So when you came back, were you going for the inserts, or were you worrying about base sets, or were you indiscriminate?
I was really looking through those dollar boxes to start and finding cards that sang to me. So a Barry Sanders, a Marshall Faulk, a Brett Favre, Frank Thomas, Cal Ripken, superstar guys that I enjoyed watching play. And every single card, as you know, is a piece of art. It's a beautiful piece of art that somebody designed and somebody took the time to create, and you pick out the photo, and they're just beautiful and very underpriced still, in my opinion. So I got back into that, and then I've been fortunate. I became an NFL agent, and this is my 3rd season. And so now I collect my first clients, Harrison Butker, who Super Bowl bound just yesterday. They won. They're heading there. But I have a pretty awesome Harrison Butker collection now too. So
I'm sure you do. That's cool.
It's pretty cool to be able to have a love of football, collect, and then you can collect your own player who you represent. So it's been a blast. And like I said, connecting with a lot of these people in the hobby has been really fun. And you meet high-end collectors, new collectors, young, old, just different walks of life. And it's really a nice connecting point for all of us.
You sound like are you, you're like a marketing and PR guy, but not just for Harrison, but for our industry, it sounds like.
I'm trying.
Is that just the way because you have a positive tone and you're promoting in a nice way? Is that what your book is going to be about, and your agency? Is that kind of your thing?
Yeah. So I started my own marketing agency because it really became about uplifting people, helping people, and bringing the love that we have for the hobby to the world, right? All of us got started with one card. And for me, it's like the early Brett Favre base cards, a 1994 score. And now it's fast forward to where I have one of the craziest Favre collections, like all the PMGs and the rubies and just these amazing, robust insert collections. So I think it's about spreading that joy to other people and finding ways to elevate the hobby and curate groups of people that really have this positive tone. And I mean, everything I do, it's about uplifting and trying to bring love to the situation.
Yeah. What, did you listen to the episode that Rich and I did about Wild Card?
No, I didn't.
I think it just recently came out, but basically those are some of Brett Favre's toughest cards. The 50 stripe, the 100 stripe, 1,000 stripe kind of things. And that was a short-lived company. We kind of talked about the rise and fall. And then you got Collector's Edge that will do something about, and they have so many different variations and ways. So is your, many of the people that get into personal, player collections mainly focus on the whales. Is that the nature of you? Are you looking at the breadth of having everything of everything?
I have a very robust Favre collection. I love the shiny inserts. If they're numbered, that's great and that's fine. But I'm more of a fan of just getting a lot of the cards that I liked as a kid. And some of these inserts, some of the most beautiful Favre cards, in my opinion, are literally $5. Right? So for me, it's about the beauty of it. I like the thought of having one of the most robust Favre collections, 1991 to 2000. I got out of it at that point, so some of the cards in the early 2000s don't sing to me as much. I didn't really have them. They're not as nostalgic. My ultimate goal with my Favre collection, though, is to have a display at the Packer Hall of Fame, to be able to tell his career story through his cards and then be able to give a ton of Favre cards to fans. I have over 12,000 Favre cards, so at some point I want to share those.
That's what I was trying to get. Let's table the Favre discussion, because I want to come back to that perhaps in another episode.
Sure.
Because we're not going to go through, listeners, 12,000 card by card. I don't have 12,000 different, but maybe I have 12,000. I don't know.
That's great. I would love to see it.
We might have a dueling collection here. But you mentioned Marshall Faulk. Did he fall by the wayside, or do you still?
I still have a good Faulk collection. So the thing about writing this book, it's given me an excuse or a reason, I guess, to collect a lot of different people. So a lot of Hall of Fame guys, Randy Moss, Peyton Manning, a lot of these players. And then, of course, on the baseball side, Frank Thomas, Cal Ripken Jr., Mark McGwire. I've really gone back into the 90s and found the best of the best and what made the hobby so great. And it's kind of like a time capsule, that moments frozen in time between your magazine and these cards. I would say there's a pretty robust collection of 90s stuff. Yeah. Tom Brady's Who Fell in 2000, right? So this whole book will be very visual, and the books will be visual. The books will be telling stories of the players. The players and the cards will be the heroes. That's the focus. There will be personal stories that will probably fall online on my website, but ultimately the books are going to be very focused on those superstar players. So my collection is very robust. The room that we saw and some of the cards that you have, I would say I have a very similar and interesting collection that of probably over 100,000 cards. Well,
that sounds terrific. One thing I was going to ask you about is, and it sounds like I think I know the answer, but so many people that I talk to, because I mainly just do pro bono consulting for people and organizations that have issues they want to deal with, and they don't want to pay any money, but they'd like to get some advice. And a lot of it's on publishing, or not a lot, but publishing comes up frequently. And there's so many people that want to do a book, or they maybe start on it, but they just can't get it done, or they can't get started, or they can't put it together. And you're doing, I think, what I really recommend to most of them. And that is, a good way to get started is by doing a podcast. Just record 15 or 30 minutes. That's simpler and easier than scripting out, writing, and punctuating, making paragraphs. Just speak it and get some feedback, put it out there in the cyberspace, see what's what. And so you're going to do a podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to start.
So that'll be a way to release it, get some feedback, and then the book is kind of the culmination, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a great way.
It's an excellent way to do it, I think.
Thank you.
And I may do that at some point, but I'm early on. I've only done 100 episodes.
That's good. You'll get there.
I have lofty goals.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. The goal is to just continue to connect with people with a lot of knowledge and that love the hobby, and you build your tribe. And starting a podcast called For the Hobby, which will really talk about the hobby, will collect a lot of great people. And
we're out of time, but I've got one last question, and that is kind of the separation of church and state. You're an agent and you're a collector. How do you draw that line that even in your book, you're going to be unashamedly a collector, but clearly an agent and a marketer for some of these situations? What line in the sand are you going to draw that people would know, the collectors would know, and the players would know that this is, Jordan does this, but not this, or he does this in a good way? So what's your,
Jim, as you know, in life, the best things are blurry, and the best things have a gray area. So we'll continue to pour the love into it and see what happens.
Okay. You heard it. The blur. I got to try that. Oh, I've been accused of being too black and white, but I'm getting grayer in my older age. So thanks, Jordan, for being with us, and listeners as well. We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode.
Is